And actually, by doing that, their numbers went down a little bit on the toxic air pollutants, which is a good thing. I don't know how lowering it from 70 to 50 could actually do it, but I asked our expert again, who said they're diluting it inside the stack before it goes out. So, but the sacrifice to do that was to increase apparently the numbers of particulate matter. They were basically at zero originally. Now they're bouncing around a half a ton per year each for NO2, CO, PM10, PM2.5. Those are all bouncing around a half a ton per year. So we've added about 2 tons per year of particulate matter, it looks like, to get the taps down lower than what they were. All this is under the DHEC limits. So technically they meet those requirements. If you haven't heard, our argument is DHEC doesn't look at location. If this factory was out in the field, the farmland somewhere, it would be treated with the same regulations as it does in a residential area. DHEC leaves it up to the local county to approve zoning. So our argument is zoning, not that they don't meet the DHEC limits. Our fear here with the chemicals and everything is more from the standpoint of what if. If there's an accidental release, these chemicals, hydrofluoric especially, is a category 3. If it was accidentally spilled, it's a category 3. The definition of category 3 is those pollutants which can cause chronic effects resulting in death or permanent injury after very short exposure to small amounts. So they have under the limits on a daily basis. We're concerned about an accidental release. Silane, the same thing. Explodes spontaneously in air if there's an accident. You know, Silfab was on TV as quoting what happens in a silane accident. They said, oh, it turns to sand. Okay? So Scott came up with the beautiful analogy that that's the same thing as saying dynamite turns to ash. We just forget about what happens in between and we're okay. So we have the infamous map that the DHEC numbers are calculated within a 1,500 meter property buffer that DHEC claims is the receptor area. So being an engineer, when I first looked at this is one of the first things I saw. People smarter than me wrote this program to do this analysis years ago, and if they put property buffer on a document, that's what they meant. And so I got that little argument going with DHEC. It's kind of irrelevant at this point, but just to give you an idea, 1,600 meters is equivalent to a mile. The pollution is calculated in a 1,500 meter radius, a little bit less than a mile. So this is not the same thing as an evacuation radius. It's where DHEC calculates the amount of pollution in that area to make sure it's under the regulations, which they are. So going straight to the zoning code. God actually told me to read the zoning code, which I'm not a big reader. I like numbers. I'm an engineer. When he said read the zoning code, I said, oh no. Especially when I pulled it up and saw that it was 598 pages. But I found this first. Fumes, vapors, and gases. There shall be no emissions of any fumes, vapors, or gases, you might can see it up on the screen, of a noxious, toxic, or corrosive nature. They have all three: toxic, corrosive, noxious, which can cause any damage or irritation to health, animals, vegetation, or to any form of property. So I guess we can't ask the birds that are flying over if this is irritating them. I have said that I am already irritated, and I haven't even breathed it yet. And I think my mental health counts, doesn't it? the definition of light industrial, Scott pointed it out, other than the no fumes part, which we're arguing violates the code, you also have the definition of light industrial, which does not include hazardous material treatment and storage facilities. Silfab has said, well, we're not a for-profit facility that treats waste. It doesn't say you have to be for-profit. Tim pointed that out. It just says an hazardous material treatment and storage facilities is not light industrial. I want you to know there's an existing building there. Silfab got a permit to move into it, operate it as office and distribution. Their plan obviously is to upfit it to do manufacturing. They're going to build another building for storage of chemicals. It's going to have its own address. They've already assigned it an address. That would be a storage facility with its own address, would it not? A material treatment. Like I said, the stacks that they have acid scrubbers on them. The way they get the amounts down under the regulations is they scrub the majority of the pollutants out before it goes out of the stack. But this, again, that regulation about, the county might be mad if I call it a regulation, but back to the no emissions, is a performance standard. The treatment, material treatment, they're treating the gas. The acid scrubbers are a treatment piece of equipment. They're treating the over 1 million gallons, or roughly 1 million gallons per day of wastewater. They are building another building to house the wastewater treatment. It has its own address. So they definitely violate hazardous material treatment and storage in the definition. So that's kind of what we've been fighting. We've gotten into debate with the county. I want to show you this because there's been some talk. We got word from the county, well, Silfab has a vested right. We were like, well, boy, I wonder what that means. I don't know, I guess God pointed me in this direction too. This was from chapter 153. So your county zoning code is chapter 155. Land development is 154. Planning and development, I think, is the title of 153, which would be where you get a vested right when you're in the planning stages. You show the county your plan, you might get a vested right. But the definition in the York County Code, chapter 153, vested right. The right, it's up on the screen, the right to undertake and complete the development of property under the terms and conditions of a site-specific development plan. Gee, I wonder what that is. Well, look right above vested right. There's a definition of site-specific development plan. It basically says a development plan submitted to the local governing body, which would be York County, authorized by the local governing body, to make land use decisions by a landowner describing with reasonable certainty the types and densities, blah, 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 provided that all such plans must conform to, comply with, and satisfy all applicable planning and zoning. So they do not have a vested right unless they submitted a site-specific development plan and got it approved and it was approved for zoning. Well, they skipped all that. We took the argument to the BZA, as you know, on May 9th, and there was a unanimous decision that it was not light industrial. So they didn't get a vested right, in our opinion. Let's see here. The next thing I want to point out is the York County management statement that came out, much to our dismay, that they were going to ignore our BZA decision. In that statement, all this is going to be up here for you if you want to come look at it after. I've got some other 8.5 by 11 documents. The management statement's actually up here if you want to see it, highlighted. But in that management statement, they mentioned one ordinance. Their argument that they didn't have to abide by the BZA or it didn't apply to Silfab was based on one code ordinance, and that was 155.1095. And the county says they refer to this B paragraph, a zoning code interpretation. Now let me point out first that this part of the code is talking about zoning code interpretation. It's not talking about BZA rulings, as John Lee pointed out. It's talking about zoning code interpretation. But if you take this and just say, okay, well, it's the intent, and if it applies for zoning or for code interpretations, then let's just say it applies for the BZA also. Let's just let them make that argument, which they're trying to do. Then we would change zoning code interpretation to a zoning code decision or a BZA decision. It does not authorize development. Any development that occurs after the BZA decision, if you substitute that for zoning code interpretation, any development that occurs after the decision has been issued is subject to all applicable requirements of this chapter as revised by the interpretation. Well, the county's looking at the word development as a noun. Silfab is a name. A noun is person, place, or thing, right? Silfab's a thing. They're a noun. They're a name. So if you look at that as a noun, the county's got a little bit of an argument there. That they were already there before the decision. So I thought I would have to look up development in the dictionary, and of course I knew it would show the noun and the verb. But, as God said, read the code. The definition of development is in New York County Zoning Code. And guess what? It's a verb. Any man-made change, verb, to, including the construction of or substantial improvements to buildings or other structures, all verb, that require permit or approval from the county. Okay? Development includes blah, blah, blah. Development also includes design and planning. So even the design and planning they're doing is development. All the changes after the BZA, when we argued they had a 70-foot stack, they needed to change it to a 50-foot stack. All that planning was development. Of course, it was allowed, and the counties used this one argument, 1095, which refers to development. There's the definition of development. So we pretty much say the county has no argument. This is the best argument. They've given us a vested right argument. They've given us a development argument. We've shot them both down in our opinion. So